long, look to Jesus and pray. Lift your voice and praise him in song. Sing and be happy today. Often we are troubled and tired, sick with sorrow and pain. There are others living in sin, blessed with earthly gain. Take new courage, we cannot tell what the morrow may bring. When the dark clouds vanish away, then your heart truly can sing. Sing and you'll be happy today, press along to the goal. Trust in him who leadeth the way, he is keeping your soul. Let the world know where you belong, look to Jesus and pray. Lift your voice and praise him in song, sing and be happy today. Oft we fail to see the rainbow up in heaven's fair sky, when it seems the fortunes of earth frown and pass us by. There are things we know that are worth more than silver and gold. If we hope and trust him each day, we shall have pleasures untold. Sing and you'll be happy today, press along to the goal. Trust in him who leadeth the way, he is keeping your soul. Let the world know where you belong, look to Jesus and pray. Lift your voice and praise him in song, sing and be happy today.
Let's pray. Holy Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the weather this today. Watch over us as we worship you, Father, and watch over us as we go back home. Let's have eyes to see you and ears to hear you throughout this lesson, Father. Help the sick and those who have lost loved ones and those who are on the prayer list. And lastly, thank you for your Son, John, the cross for our sins. In his name we pray. Amen.
I'll be reading from Hebrews 11:6. Hebrews 11:6. And without faith it is impossible to please him, for whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists, and that he rewards those who seek him.
Next song is going to be number 401. 401. We will glorify the King of Kings. We will glorify the Lamb. We will glorify the Lord of Lords, who is the great I am. Lord Jehovah reigns in majesty. We will bow before his throne. We will worship him in righteousness. We will worship him alone. He is Lord of heaven, Lord of earth. He is Lord of all who live. He is Lord of the universe. All praise to him we give. Hallelujah to the King of Kings. Hallelujah to the Lamb. Hallelujah to the Lord of Lords, who is the great I am.
Number 59. Number 59. Father, I adore you, and I
be reading from Matthew 21, verse 22. Matthew 21, verse 22. And whatever you ask in prayer, you will receive if you have faith.
Song before the lesson will be number 740. Number 740. And the song, or the invitation song, will be number 888. Number 888. There's a message true and glad for the sinful and the sad. Ring it out. Ring it out. It will give them courage new. It will help them to be true. Ring it out. Ring it out. Merrily ring. Speed it away. Message divine. Send it today. Let it cheer the lost and those and out. Send out. Merrily ring. Wonderful news. Making men free. Happy and free. Ring, 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 ring the message out. Tell the world of saving grace, make it known in every place. Ring it out, ring it out. Help the needy ones to know Him from whom all blessings flow. Ring it out, ring it out. Merrily ring, speed it away. Message divine, send it today. Let it cheer the lost and those in doubt. Merrily ring, wonderful news, making men free, happy and free. Ring, 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 ring the message out. Sin and doubt to sweep away till shall dawn the better day. Ring it out, ring it out, till the sinful world be won for Jehovah's mighty Son. Ring it out, ring it out. Merrily ring, speed it away. Message divine, send it today. Let it cheer the lost and those in doubt. Ring, merrily, wonderful news, making men free, happy and free. To ring, 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 ring the message out.
Good evening. I'd like to start off by reading 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. January 26th, that'll be next year. Sunday morning and Sunday night's services are going to be centered around that text. Tonight's lesson is going to kind of serve as an introduction. Tonight I'm going to talk to you about keeping the faith. God has a great plan for every single one of our lives, something more than we've imagined. But that plan won't come to pass without opposition, things you don't understand, things that aren't fair. You see, the truth is, God doesn't take us in a straight line. There will be many detours, delays, and even some dead ends. It feels like a setback, but really it's a setup. Sometimes you're going to feel like your destiny is not there, but really those setbacks are leading you to your destiny. The test is to keep the faith. You'll be tempted to get discouraged and to give up on your dreams. God, why did this happen? Well, I'll tell you, God wouldn't have allowed it if it was going to stop your purpose. Faith Faith is believing when you don't understand. It's believing when all your circumstances say, it's never going to work out. Knowing that God is on the throne and that His plans for you are for good. That what He has purposed for your life will come to pass. That door that closed, you didn't like it, but it was God ordering your steps. That person that walked out on you, yeah, it was painful, but it was part of God's plan. You don't need them for your destiny. That contract you lost, that tough season at work, it may not seem good now, but if you keep the faith, all things are going to work out for your good. God knows how to bring good out of a bad situation. You have to have a made-up mind. You have to have the mindset that you are in it for the long haul, no matter what comes your way. You're going to keep believing, keep trusting, keep praying, and keep praising, knowing that God has you in the palm of His hand, that He's working behind the scenes, that He has the final say. Isaiah 54 verse 17 says, "No weapon formed against you will ever prosper." He said, "What was meant for your harm, He will turn to your advantage." God being for you is more than the world being against you. Don't be moved by what you see, because what you see right now is only temporary. When it all comes together, then it will make sense. And I found that the enemy is not fighting for where you are, he's fighting for where you're going. Let that sink in. He knows there's greatness in you. You're a giant killer. You're a history maker. If you weren't a threat to him, he would leave you alone. That's why the enemy brings difficulties. That's why he brings trials and tribulations. He's trying to get you discouraged. He's trying to get you to live a life of doubt, thinking that God has forgotten about you. Don't fall into that trap. You have to dig down deep and make the decision that you're going to keep the faith. You lost a loved one, but you kept the faith. You lost a position, but you kept the faith. Your health went down, but still you kept the faith. You had a setback in your finances, but you kept the faith. God sees you doing the right thing even when it's difficult. He sees you praising even when you could be discouraged, praising through the pain and being good to people that have not been good to you. Your time is coming. Healing, breakthroughs, victory is on its way. No one had more come against him than the Apostle Paul. He faced many hardships and rejections. 2 Corinthians chapter 11 mentions some of these. 5 times he was given 39 lashes. Once he was stoned by an angry mob. He said 3 times he was beaten with rods for sharing his faith. He was falsely accused and put in prison. And on top of that, when he first became a believer on the road to Damascus, the church leaders did not accept him. They didn't really think that he had changed. And for years, he was rejected by the leaders of the church. At Paul's trial, he said all the people he thought would be there, his friends, his colleagues, they weren't there. He said all the people I was counting on, they weren't there. Paul had all these opportunities to be bitter, to be angry, but at the end of his life, sitting at a prison cell, he gives us the secret to living in victory. Paul says, "I have finished my course and I've kept the faith." Paul had a lot of people that had betrayed him, but that didn't stop his destiny. Alexander did wrong by him, but God will fight his battles. He got put in prison, but he's not sitting around in self-pity. They took away his ability to travel. They took away his ability to speak. They took away his freedom. But you know what they didn't take away? His pen. They couldn't stop his words from getting out. Paul wrote several letters of the New Testament while he was in a prison cell. What a great testimony to come to the end of life and to be able to say with Paul, "I have kept the faith. I went through a rough childhood, but I kept the faith. I didn't get that scholarship, but I kept the faith. My friend walked out on me, but I kept the faith." And Paul says in Acts 20 that none of these things move me. You have to get to the point where you're not moved by disappointments. You're not moved by opposition. You're not moved by a medical report because, yes, it does not look good right now, but there's another report. God says that He's restoring health back unto me. You can stay in peace knowing that God has the final say. You may be facing things now and you don't ever see how it's going to work out. Your finances, your health, a relationship. You could be stressed. You could lose your passion. If Paul was here today, he would tell you to keep the faith. God is still on the throne. He has a way even though you don't see a way. Life may have thrown some curves at you, but it's not a surprise to God. The enemy didn't somehow overtake the plan for your life and he's got the steering wheel and now he's in control. No, God is still ordering your steps. He's with you in the sickness, in the loss. That's a critical time you could get discouraged and start doubting or have a new perspective. God, I trust you. I know what you have purposed for my life will come to pass. That this setback is really setting me up for new levels of my destiny. When you have setbacks, don't turn from your faith. Turn to your faith. God may not have sent the storm, but He will use the storm to help move you into your destiny. The storm will take you where you could not go on your own. That's why in difficulties, betrayals, things you don't understand, you have to keep the faith. God is up to something. It may be painful, but God is still in control. You can't see what He's doing right now. You don't know where you're being led to. What looks like a disappointment, a betrayal, could be God stirring things up to get you in position for something greater. Now the key is, what are you doing in the tough times? When things don't make sense, when you don't understand, do you get upset? Do you lose your passion? Or do you choose to keep the faith? God is still in control. If He allowed it, He is going to somehow turn around and use it for your advantage. It's very powerful when you can say, God, I trust you in the good times, and God, I trust you in the tough times. God, I'm going to keep the faith when I understand it, when things are going my way, when I'm seeing your favor. I'm going to keep the faith when doors close, when sickness shows, when people betray me. Paul was a prisoner on a boat headed to Rome, and an angel told him that he was going to stand before Caesar. He had this promise from God, but on the journey they faced a huge storm. And for 14 days they did not see the sun nor a single star. The waves were so big and the winds were so strong, they started throwing cargo overboard to get some of the weight off of their ship so that it wouldn't sink. The crew got so depressed they quit eating. Acts 27 verse 20 says, all hope they had that they would be saved was gone. Paul could have said, God, you said I was going to Rome, but here I am on this ship and I'm going to die. But Paul did not say that. He stood up and told the crew, don't worry, we're all going to make it to the shore. Not one life will be lost. After 2 weeks of being battered and bruised by the storm, they saw an island off in the distance. Winds blew them closer and closer, and finally the boat hit a huge sandbar and broke apart. Acts 27 verse 44 says, they all grabbed pieces of the boat and used it to swim to shore. In a few hours, all 276 passengers made it safely to the island. But when the boat broke apart, I'm sure there were some people on that boat that were like, this is it, we're out here in this ocean, there's no way we're going to be able to swim all the way to the shore. They didn't have what they thought they needed. They no longer had a boat, but you know what they did have? They had pieces of a boat. They had pieces of wood to make it to the island. In life, you may not have what you think you need, but there will be pieces to get you where you're supposed to be going. Paul got to the island, and he reached down to grab some firewood, and he got bit by a poisonous snake. And suddenly, all the natives grew anxious. They had seen this happen time and time again, that somebody would get bit by this snake, and in about an hour, they would swell up and die. Well, Paul, he had a different mindset about this. He just shook it off and went about his business like it never affected him. The natives were so amazed that Paul had not died from the snake bite that they genuinely thought that Paul was a god. He went around and he started praying for the sick people on this island, and they started to be healed. And soon the whole island came to know Jesus. Now, God had told Paul, He said, you're going to Rome, but you're going to find yourself on a deserted island thinking, this doesn't make any sense. Truth is, God has people He wants you to impact. People who need your love. People who need your healing. Well, you might say, Carter, I'm not an apostle like Paul. And that is true. But as a believer, there is healing in your hands. There's healing in your words. Sometimes we get so caught up in our plans and our bad breaks and things that are going on in our lives that we miss out on the miracles along the way. It's a divine detour. And a lot of times you are not going to understand it. Things that are not going to make sense. But you weren't took there by accident. You need to look for opportunities to be good to people. Look for opportunities to plant a seed. And God will use that seed to help heal. Often, out of pain comes purpose. And out of difficulties comes destiny. The enemy means it for your harm, but God knows how to make it backfire. He will use it to show you what your true purpose is. You've got to keep on praying, keep on believing, keep on dreaming, and keep on serving. The boat may fall apart, but you know what you do? You grab a piece of wood and you float along to the shore. You know it's not a surprise. God did not bring you this far to leave you behind. Maybe today you need to dig down a little deeper. You're letting doubts, delays, detours, what somebody else said cause you to live sour, cause you to live disappointed. You need to get your passion back. You need to get your joy back. You need to get your vision back. What happened may not have been fair, but God has beauty for those ashes. He will pay you back for the wrong. That mistake you made, that did not stop God's calling on your life. You will receive the forgiveness and much more when you move on and you move to your destiny. Your assignment is calling. Yes, there may be big obstacles, but we serve a big God. If He couldn't bring you out of it, then why would He bring you in it? You have to do your part and keep the faith. Paul had a young man that he mentored named Timothy, and he was on the verge of getting discouraged and missing out on his destiny. And in this time, Paul told him something that was very, very encouraging. He told him that he needed to fan the flame, get his passion back, and he was telling him to keep the faith. He went on to say something very, very significant to Timothy. He said, Timothy, the faith I saw in your mother Eunice and the faith I saw in your grandmother Lois is the same faith I now see in you. Paul was telling us that when you keep the faith, it's not just affecting you and making your life better, but it's transferred to your children, to your grandchildren. Paul saw the faith of Timothy's grandmother in him. Every time you stand strong and do the right thing when it's hard to believe, when you focus on your dreams, even though all your circumstances are against you, you grab that piece of wood and you float to shore. It's not just affecting you, it's affecting generations. It's not just a personal thing, it's generational. How that should inspire us to live a life of faith. Someone in your family line had faith, and it was passed on to you, and that is why you're hearing this message today. Are we just going to make it through life, sour over disappointments, bitter over the loss, or are we going to keep the faith and know that God is in control? He is ordering your steps. We all know what an amazing leader David was. He overcame being rejected by his father, looked down on by his brothers, mistreated by King Saul. And it is really, really interesting when you go back in his family line and look 3 generations back. His great-grandmother was Ruth. Ruth was an amazing woman. Her husband died at a young age, and she became a widow. Her mother-in-law, Naomi, when she lost both her sons and her husbands, she became bitter. She said, I'm going to move back to Bethlehem. She and her husband and her 2 sons left years before during a famine and went to Moab. That's where Ruth met her son. Now the husband and the sons have died. Naomi said, I went out full, but I'm coming back empty. Here, Ruth was disappointed. She had gone through the loss of her husband, but still she came to Naomi and she said, I am going to take care of you. So that's what they did. They went back to Bethlehem, and Ruth took care of Naomi. Every single morning she would go out and she would gather wheat. This is how they survived. Despite all the loss and the heartache, she still believed that God was in control. She ended up marrying a man named Boaz, and he owned all of the fields of wheat that Ruth had been living off of. Her and Boaz ended up having a son named Obed. And Obed had a son named Jesse. And Jesse, he had a son named David. No wonder why David was such a strong and confident leader. It all started 3 generations back with his grandmother, Ruth. You can make a generational difference by keeping the faith. Paul said in Galatians 5, you are running so well. Who has hindered you? Maybe it is tonight that you have gotten discouraged. You're like Naomi. You're just barely making it through life. The good news is you can get that back tonight. It's not too late. God is saying to you what He said to Timothy. Stir up your faith, fan the flame. God is calling on you, on your life. He has a purpose and He is waiting for you. You can still become who you were created to be. Maybe it is tonight that you're a Christian and you've not been able to keep your faith as you should. You just need prayers from the church. Whatever the need may be, please come as we stand and sing this song.
Have you been to Jesus for the cleansing power? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you fully trusting in His grace this hour? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul-cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments garments spotless, are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you walking daily by the Savior's side? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Do you rest each moment in the crucified? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul-cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Lay aside the garments that are stained with sin, and be washed in the blood of the Lamb. There's a fountain flowing for the soul unclean. Oh, be washed in the blood of the Lamb. Are you washed in the blood, in the soul-cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb?
Yes. Thank you guys. Appreciate y'all very much. Carter, wonderful job. What did you say, January the 26th? You'll put that in your calendar, mark that date. You don't want to miss that lesson. Appreciate you very much. I know you put a lot of time and effort into that. We have a few announcements tonight before we have a closing song and a closing prayer. And we have a few that we want to mention on our prayer list tonight as well. We've got word tonight that Debbie Dotson is in Centennial ER, has blood clot in her wrist, and is awaiting surgery. So let's keep Debbie in our prayers as she awaits that surgery, and that it all goes well. Asked to remember Prim Sanders, a premature baby. Has some serious heart surgery coming up. Asked to please remember this baby, this newborn. This is Kathy Martin's friend's grandbaby. So let's remember Prim Sanders in our prayers, having upcoming heart surgery. Also, Marvin England is at home after a hospital stay, getting over pneumonia. So let's remember Marvin. Asked to remember, continue to remember Christy Green. She is in St. Thomas, and her heart is in AFib, so they'll be, I think, tomorrow going to shock her heart back into rhythm. So let's remember Christy and Mike at this time. Asked to remember Leanne Stewart, who is scheduled to have a knee replacement surgery on January the 13th. Also remember Sheila McBride, who is back in the ER. This is a friend of the Kilpatricks. So remember Sheila. I'm probably missing someone that I've jotted down and just haven't seen. Asked to remember Noah Stewart and those from Freed who will be traveling to Egypt and Jordan in just a few days. On Thursday, January the 2nd, they'll be leaving, and we'll be returning on the 13th. So let's remember that group in our prayers as well. Anyone else we need to add or update? Anyone I might have missed? Yes.
Leanne's on that same.
I did say Leanne.
Okay.
Trying to get me, Billy. Let's see. In news and notes, some things that we need to remember. As we know, the House to Heart seminar will begin this coming Saturday. Please remember that. Also, we'll continue into Sunday our worship time during the Bible class hour. The kids will still be meeting downstairs for class. The teenagers will be up here along with the rest of the adults. We'll be meeting upstairs. Then after our worship that morning, we'll be having a meal together, so remember that. And then following the meal, we'll come back up for the rest of the seminar. We will not have services next Sunday night, so please make note of that. No services next Sunday night at 6. We'll conclude with the seminar, and that'll end it for the day for us. Also, for our youth, our lock-in is tonight. We'll be meeting downstairs, and we'll get started with that as soon as we're dismissed. I think that is all that I have. Anyone else tonight have something to add? If not, the Lord's Supper is prepared tonight. For anyone who hasn't had a chance to partake of it today, you may do that at this time. You can exit through the door to my left, the second classroom on the right. 2 of our young men will be there to serve you. As we stand and are led in the song, you may be dismissed.
$199 and $199. Blue skies and rainbows and sunbeams from heaven are what I can see. When my Lord is living in me, I know that Jesus is well and alive today. He makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone, since he promised me that we never would part.
Please bow. Father, thank you for this day, and thank you for everything you've blessed us with. Father, please bless the ones that are on the prayer list, whether that's dealing with the lost loved one or dealing with medical issues. Just please bless them. Father, please bless our leaders of our country to look towards you when they make decisions for our country. Father, thank you for your Son who died on the cross for our sins. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.